Hi everyone, today we got that bigger sell in markets that we'd finally been expecting. I thought we were going to get it yesterday, but it came today here. You can see hit that upper structure in the pre-market and then immediately sold super aggressively through the session, ended up negative on the day, tried to retrace a little bit after getting below this trend structure here. Then we're seeing more sells in the after hours. I expect this to sell at least to here, but let's take a look at all of the charts and see where we could end up for tomorrow. Do me a quick favor and like and subscribe and watch the video till the end to help out the channel, and let's get started. Moving over to news, gold price reached 4,000 an ounce for the first time ever here on Tuesday. Seems like investors really worldwide are looking for weaker currencies, weaker dollar, geopolitical risk, economic uncertainty continues to be an issue, and for that reason people are seeking those safe haven style commodities, looking for gold futures reaching $4,004 after hitting an all-time high of $4,014, rising about 50% this year, while the dollar index has fallen about 10%. And that really makes sense. Donald Trump is kind of waging a war on the dollar with all of the trade talks that he's considering. Central banks are starting to cut a little bit. We had inflation reads. We had consumer expectations for inflation going up a little bit. So people believe that inflation is going to be higher. We're also cutting rates, and the dollar continues to be a little bit weak. You also got Ray Dalio coming out and saying something like 15% of your portfolio should be in gold. It's not an effective store of wealth, he says here, but it is a hedge against inflation, and that seems to be a concern for a pretty large amount of investors, at least right now. Moving over to fear and greed index, we're down to a 53 from a 56. Pretty substantial step down here, back into neutral on momentum. Strength still has not moved. Breadth into fear here. We'll see what that looks like on the charts, but makes sense. It did sell yesterday. I expected it to sell a little bit more today. Put call ratio still says extreme greed here. I wonder if that is going to spike up a little bit more tomorrow. Volatility spiking up as we expected that it would, and then safe haven demand curling down here, and then extreme fear on junk bond demand. So pretty much across the board, markets are saying we are in the early stages of a downturn. Moving over to the economic calendar, we did get that consumer inflation expectation for the New York Fed at 11 o'clock. That said, consumers think that inflation is going to be a little bit higher, 3.4% over the next year, which is pretty substantially higher than what we have seen in the data. I don't really believe that's going to happen. I think this is a little bit overstated here. Atlanta Fed GDP was still very strong at 3.8%. Three-year note auction, 3.5%, up a little bit from the previous read. Consumer credit down quite a bit from the previous. And then for tomorrow, we do get those FOMC minutes. Could be interesting. 10-year note auction also there. Fed Powell speaking on Thursday. That could be interesting at 8:30. So just know if you hold anything into the close tomorrow, might get impacted by that. And then want to see if we get this jobless data here this next week that we didn't get last week. Continuing expectations, initial claims would be interesting. Moving over to the charts, we did get that bigger breakdown that I was looking for over the weekend. I was a little bit surprised it didn't come yesterday, but there just wasn't enough volume on it. But today, big sell, huge volume, big sell through that level here to that next level. I do suspect this is going to sell quite a bit more down to kind of 665 tomorrow. I think makes sense. Get at least a touch of that 9 EMA, 666.37. 21 EMA would be that next zone you're looking for on that daily chart. That is going to be 661.78. Tomorrow it'll probably be around kind of 662 or so. Momentum stepping to bearish, RSI selling off from super overbought conditions. Big volume spike on that sell. I would expect at least 1 to 2 more candles on that move, which was my expectation going into the weekend. Got a little bit of a bounce yesterday, and then we got that bigger sell today, so expecting more follow through on that move. Moving over to the SPY charts here, you can see on the Tasty charts, we're into bearish conditions here, so we had a flip to bearish, back to bullish on this kind of slight continuation, back to bearish here. Now your trailing stop is 672.17, sold off here. Got the 144 EMA as your next support. We hit that area and then bounced. It was oversold conditions, but your lowest ATR band for tomorrow is going to be 667.77. That'll continue to sell off through the session. You can see even just in today's session, that band went from around 669 down to 667. So at least $2 more of potential down move on that lowest ATR band, plus we're already at 669, so that would give you about 1% of potential downside there. Then of course, looking at that daily chart, doesn't look like much on the daily chart here. You can see 8 EMA was that support, 667.61, pretty much in line with the low of the candle. 21 EMA is going to be that next zone, 661.95, 662 area. That's what I'm looking for tomorrow, which does give you quite a bit of room for a potential sell tomorrow. Moving over to the NASDAQ, same kind of thesis here, came up, hit that trend line we talked about yesterday, sold right through that next one, hit the highly traded zone and bounced a little bit, but still think this is going to go quite a bit lower. 9 EMA there at 601.44. Low of day today was 603.03. So I think we're going to go down to that 9 EMA at least. See if we cut through there or not. Still expecting kind of this move, right? So you get the first sell, that's this move here. Get the next touch, might see a little bit of a bounce from there, but either way, I still think we're going lower, at least to that 21 EMA down to VWAP or so. And also see the volume spike on that sell. That is not what you want to see, right? So pretty much everything here still says, I think this goes lower. How much lower tomorrow? It's a fairly good question. I think at least $4, 0.5%, I think makes sense. We're down about 0.5% today, and I suspect we'll get at least that much tomorrow. Moving over to the Tasty charts for the Qs, you can see that same sell candle, big sell right to the 8 EMA, touched that zone and bounced a little bit. 21 for tomorrow, 995.57. Pretty good substantial area for movement tomorrow. You can also see the volume spike on the RVol. That to me means there's going to be a little bit of follow through on this. That is my expectation. And then we'll see, can we get down to the trailing stop, 587.50. We didn't quite get there on this last pullback. We did end up getting some follow through here, but on this move here, we did pull back all the way to that trailing stop before we caught a bounce, double bottomed in that area, and then got the rally out. So if we're going to have a bigger move up, I think we need to cut a little bit deeper here, down to that 587.50 area. Moving over to the Russell and the Dow, the Russell did even worse than the others, down over 1%, hit this zone here, hit the trend line again, and then sold off all the way to the next level, 442, 44, 46, closed below it, 244.16, 9 EMA in there, 243.09, almost touched that level, then bounced just a little bit. Momentum bearish, RSI bearish, closed below the level. For me, that says this should sell off a little bit more. Didn't really see the volume on it that I would have wanted to see to kind of confirm that direction a little bit more, but either way, structurally, sell candle here down to the 21. Suspect that's where we're going to go at least. 241.05 is that next level. Dow, same kind of thesis here, hitting that 9 zone. You can see the 2 down candles. Do we get this follow through to the 21? At 461.72, that's kind of what I'm looking for now. Momentum stepping to bearish, RSI right at the SMA. And then interesting here, you see that big volume spike, kind of candle rejection, 2 down candles still on volume. Again, kind of looks like a topping pattern potentially, just keep that in mind. Moving over to the Mag 7, still in the same consolidation range. It looked a little better, kind of like a fake out yesterday, came up, almost tested that SMA, but then we rejected off of that high and sold today down a little bit over 1%. Momentum back to bearish, RSI back to bearish. I still believe this is going to sell down to that 55 EMA around 354.92. If it does, that does give you around 3.5–3.75% potential move. And you can see here, big volume pass through this area into that area of next volume. Makes sense right in here for that next area of support. Moving over to Apple and Microsoft, Apple still cannot hit that 260 level. And at this point for me, I think this is going to flip bearish. Now, I don't think we're going to get above this and get some kind of massive breakout. I think this is probably going to be a top here at that zone. Just has not shown conviction to get above it. We've been here for a while. Seems like somebody's probably taking profits in here. That's probably what is happening in my opinion. And then looking at Microsoft, had the huge up candle, hit that target yesterday, closed above the trend line. Then if you were in it today, you got stopped out pretty quick there, around 527 or so. Sold through that, closed down almost 1% at this point. Probably going to sell off a little bit more. I said before, I thought this would probably top out here. I didn't think we were going to go back to the all-time highs by any means. Big sell here, expected a lower high. I've been expecting kind of sideways choppy here on Microsoft. This was a little bit easier to read in my opinion. You saw the breakout here, the retest structure here, continuation, but I think this is probably going to fail before we get to that level at this point and just kind of sideways meander. I don't think you're going to get Microsoft on a discount by any means, but I don't think we're going to continue to see the massive run that we saw over the last several months. Moving over to Tesla and NVIDIA. Tesla had the news around a new, cheaper Model Y. People didn't think that was good enough to keep those gains from yesterday, so had a big move, up 5%, down 4.5% today. Momentum back to bearish, RSI back to bearish. This looks a lot more like a topping pattern now. We had the outside reversal candle, had the big kind of catalyst push, and now I think this is probably done here. Still got support around this kind of 414.50 area, 21 EMA in there around 420. We'll see. Probably going to touch that area again, but structurally still looks like a top. Indicators looks like selling, and then you got NVIDIA came down, touched that level again. Low of day was 184. My level 183.97, didn't quite touch it, hit the 9 EMA. Is this going to hold support in here? The momentum is bearish. The RSI is right on the SMA. This will be interesting tomorrow, right? Does this hold in here and bounce and kind of fight the direction of markets? Certainly a possibility. I'll be watching this one here. I've been watching NVIDIA for a while. I think I'll move this indicator just a little bit up. Actually, I want to put it above price. I want to see if price goes higher from this level. So we'll see. I'll be watching NVIDIA tomorrow. I still like this as a setup, as kind of a breakout retest potentially. I know there was kind of the weak news around AMD, but I do like NVIDIA. I think this could be interesting. Moving over to staples and discretionaries. If this is not risk off, I'm not sure what is here. You got a huge spike up almost 1% from this zone of support, 77.50. We said this was support. It almost broke below it. Got a little bit of a fake out there. Got a wick to the lows and then a huge buy on the day, up almost 1%. Good volume coming in, momentum swinging to bullish. We said this was probably a base before. So a little bit of a head fake yesterday, but I think the base is probably in on staples. I think this has probably a couple of percentage points to run there. And then looking at discretionaries, big sells here, 1.75% momentum back to bearish, RSI back to bearish. We said this was a big double top, and discretionaries are selling off. We're below the level here, 235.85. Next support is the 55 EMA around 231.96, 232 in this area here. Moving over to breadth, we said breadth continues to downtrend and it continues to be negative yesterday and negative here today. Makes sense with everything selling. Expecting more follow through on that. Once we hit these critical levels, we'll talk about it then, but I do suspect this will continue to go lower tomorrow. Moving over to the dollar. Dollar looks amazing. We've been talking about the dollar, long dollar trade for a while here, and this looks even better here today. Got the up move here, second push here, third push here. I think we're going to get to this trend line, to that 144 EMA around 99.13. Momentum bullish, RSI bullish. Really solid base in here. I think the dollar is really set to go long in my opinion, so just keep this in mind. I think the long dollar trade is in play. Moving over to bonds. Bonds sold off, momentum bearish here on J&K. It's been bearish for a while. You can see quite a few red candles, momentum bearish here. I think RSI is bearish. I think this is going to go at least to the 55 around 97.13. Does it go to 96.51? That's the next big question there. And then looking at TLT, got a nice bounce, a little bit of a head fake here. This looked pretty rough, right? With a high lower high structure, you had a kind of a midpoint here between those, which did test yesterday, but momentum stepped back up, got back above the level on a close there, 89.18, 89.12 after hours. It's holding in there a lot better. I think this is starting to be seen as a little bit of a risk off asset, and I think this might catch a little bit more strength here over the next couple of days. Moving over to the VIX. VIX got another nice move. We've been talking about this here. This is a nice bull shape. We were holding more and more supports. Momentum bullish, RSI bullish. Suspect this is going to go to that 20 to 21 area in the next move. Then we'll see what happens when we hit here. Is this going to be kind of a long drawn out kind of spike move here or something like that? Or is this going to be another one of those kind of like massive spikes where you have a series of lower highs over the medium term? That's what we kind of have to wait and see. I think we'll probably get a bigger initial push here. Maybe we get into the 28 area eventually, but for now, I think 20 is in play. I think we'll see something similar to this, at least into this region here. If we get through there to that 28 area, obviously that's going to be very bearish for markets, but in the short term, I don't think that's quite in play. Moving over to mine counts, I did not trade at all here. You can see 0 trades on the day. Everything was bearish, as I kind of suspected that it would be. You can see the dollar trade made up a little bit of money. I don't know if it actually made this much money, but that's what it's saying here, up $60 supposedly. Either way, dollar was bullish today, up 16 cents on UUP. I think this is going to continue to go. I've been bullish the dollar for a while. I think this should be in play here. Probably going to hit 28 in not too long. Then we'll see what happens after that. Either way, I'd be looking for bearish trades over the next couple of days, and I might look to trade a little bit more bearish tomorrow depending on what we see, but either way right now, just long dollar. Let me know down in the comment section what you think of gold. Are you buying gold? Are you buying Bitcoins? Are you looking for commodities? Or what are you buying that's going to fight against inflation? Let me know. Otherwise, like and subscribe if you got any value out of this video. Make sure you hit the bell so you don't miss out on any future episodes. Of course, none of this is financial advice. This is all for entertainment purposes. Good luck in your trading and have a great day.